this down.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today is the March 27, 2023 meeting of the Westport Commission on Disability. My name is Brian Gallagher. I am the chairman of our commission. We have one of our members participating remotely. That's Ray Phoenix, and he's on the telephone with us. A couple of our members cannot make it tonight, this afternoon rather. Did everybody receive the minutes from our last meeting that I sent around?
Yes.
Anybody want to make any changes or recommendations?
I wasn't here, so.
Nope.
So,
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second?
all in favor of
Aye.
approving them?
Aye.
Great. The next item on the agenda that I put down was, I received a request from the planning board for input from our commission and actually other commissions and boards in the town were also asking for input relative to what kind of housing we would like to see come into our town
Well,
as we move forward. And received contact from Mr. Michael Burris. And Michael has volunteered to come and speak to us today about the issue. So, and then there was also another thing that Michael contacted me about that is something that for the future about Main Road and making it more pedestrian friendly. And you're setting up some groups to get together, people from various commissions and boards to get together and give input about what might happen there to make it more friendly to people on their feet, people in wheelchairs, people using canes and crutches and that sort of thing. So that's for the future. But right now, we're going to have a discussion about what kind of housing we want to see in town, because I know that everybody on the board, on our commission's given this a lot of thought, and we've talked about it
yes, we have.
in the past, but let's see what we can talk about today. Would you like to join us?
Sure, I can move up here.
Yeah, sure.
So I have circulated a survey that, and we're not exactly spearheading this for the town. We're coordinating it for the town. We've contracted with Serped to update our housing production plan. So the last housing production plan expired in 2022, and so we're updating it for the next 4 years. And they have been contracted to do all the work for us. And so they have produced that survey that I had circulated with you all. If you know anyone who would be interested in taking it, or you want to share it on social media, please do that. It's really critical that we get some feedback on that. And so what the purpose of the housing production plan is, it's it's a strategic plan for development of affordable housing. And we come up with that plan based on a comprehensive needs assessment through public engagement processes like I've shared with you all. That's about all I really have to say about that. It's a survey, so it's pretty self-explanatory. But
Could you explain, so with the survey, once you get all that in, what will happen then? You guys will look at that, and then where does it move forward from there?
So when we get the results from that, which Serped is going to leave the survey period open, I believe, until the end of April. And once they get that data and tabulate the data, that will inform, they will develop, well, I don't know exactly how they're going to structure the update
Okay.
to the plan. But I would imagine that there's going to be a discussion in the plan about community preferences as informed by the surveying that they've done, and they'll have typically you would have a presentation of that data.
Okay, thank you. And the plan is this something like the 40B, chapter 40B, in other words, to increase the affordable housing in each of the communities? Or are we doing this as a specific, special project for Westport?
So it's It's all of the above. I think if the recommendations that they will make will touch on market rate housing all the way to 40B. So this is the very first step of the update to the housing production plan, and I think right now they're trying to get a general sense for what kind of housing folks would like to see built in the community.
Good, okay.
People on our commission obviously have limitations with respect to their housing, and in the past, we've had some discussion and some documentation provided to us from the state about money that would be available for building or retrofitting homes to make them more accessible. And that's one of the things we want to try to do on our commission, is make things as accessible as possible for people with disabilities. I know for my own personal situation, when my wife and I had our house built, I knew that someday I would be in the condition that I'm in. So we had a ramp put in up to the front door. Everything is on the same floor, and the doors are the extra wide doors, the 39.5 inches, so it's easier to get the wheelchair. But there is money available for people who want to retrofit their home so that and make the countertops higher. So from my own personal perspective, I would like to see housing that's built that can accommodate people with disabilities, with ramps and with wider doorways and with lower countertops so that they don't have to reach, and shelves that they can get to without, having to use a grab bar and that sort of thing. And I know that some of the other people on the commission probably have their own thoughts about that. But accessibility is the driving force as far as we're concerned.
Sure.
From what I've read, there are approximately 2,000 people in our town who identify themselves as having some form of disability. And, they probably have settled into their own living situations, but for anybody coming into the town, we want to make sure that they have options.
Right. So what you're saying is to go beyond some of the universal design elements to actually have maybe to go beyond those universal design elements. So like the handles and whatnot, instead of having a turn handle, it's like the lever, and
Right.
go beyond those things so you can have those lower cabinets, counters, those kinds of things.
At least make sure that the developer gives people those options.
Okay.
And not certainly not require them to put them in every single unit, but
Sure.
give someone who's looking to buy a place, and I guess it'd be a new construction, the options of having a ramp and having the 39-inch doors and having the levers for the handles and the lower counters
Sure.
and that sort of thing.
What percentage of the town population would that 2,000 represent? What's the total population now?
It's going to be about 10%, right? I
That's-
believe we're 18 to 20,000.
That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that correlate then to what should or could be offered?
I don't know. It seems to be a significant percentage of people in the town who already identify themselves as disabled. And I assume that they've made adjustments for themselves, grab bars and that sort of thing. Yeah.
All kinds.
Yeah, me too. But for someone coming in to buy a place,
Right.
they should have the options
Yeah.
and say, yeah, I would like grab bars in the bathroom. I would like a rampway to the front door. I would like a 39.5-inch door. And those sort of things. Just give them the, and I understand there will be probably price adjustments that have to be made for those things, but people should have the option of making those choices.
Sure. No, that's a great point, and I don't think that's a perspective that the survey, I think, was really represented, or it wasn't really represented in the survey, to have those kinds of options incorporated in the building process. So, thank you.
I think especially
That's a good
in,
point.
apartment buildings and, the mass developments where there's the requirement for the low-income portion, but there's no real requirement to make sure that at least one of those apartments is
Mhm.
accessible, with the wide doorways and the low countertops and everything that goes, a roll-in tub, for example. So,
Mhm.
it makes it a hardship for somebody that's trying to find a place to live if there's just no place unless they own a home that they can retrofit or go into an assisted living or a nursing type facility,
Mhm.
which most
Yeah.
people with a disability don't require that level of care. They just need a place they can get in and out of with some independence.
We've also gone before the planning board here in town and talked about the sidewalks in town. Said all new developments now, if there's going to be 5 or more houses, there has to be a sidewalk on at least one side of the street. Before it was 20 houses.
Right.
And we want to make sure that there are curb cuts. One of the things that I find attractive is if you are disabled and you can't get around really easily, perhaps if you're going to have multifamily homes, have someplace where they can easily get to the store to buy food or the things that are necessary to them.
Do you know if there are any communities that are requiring those elements like the lower grab or the grab bars, the lower countertops, those kinds of things, maybe capped at like 10% of units in the development or sort of, whatever they figured out to be appropriate. Because I know we already cap 10% for affordable housing, so you may be able to do something where, it's you cap it at a certain percentage of units, has to require it, some of those elements. Do you know if there are any communities that do that?
I am not specifically aware, I don't know if anybody else is.
New Bedford has it. I actually lived in one of the apartments in New Bedford. It was a combination disabled and elderly,
Mhm.
and the apartment I was in had the lowered, just what you're talking about, Brian, had the lowered cabinets, wider doors, pulled strings in the bathroom in case, you needed some emergency help. It was wonderful.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming it was, like you're talking about, maybe 10% because there were elderly folks who lived above me who didn't have that. And I think there's the 2 bottom apartments had it in my particular complex.
Yeah, was it developed under, and apologies if this is getting too into like, planning, zoning bylaws and stuff, but was it developed under a particular housing product in the zoning bylaws, or was it just a general apartment complex that was required to incorporate those elements?
You are correct, that is too specific. This was early on when I first got injured. I got injured in 1985, so I probably moved in around 88. I was just
Okay.
happy to get the apartment.
Right.
At that time, I wasn't
Sure.
into,
Sure.
how these things happen, but that'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, I mean, because we have our own, we have independent living facility housing developments and assisted living facility housing developments in our zoning bylaws. So I'm just curious if, as like a typical, general apartment complex that's just a market rate apartment complex,
Mhm.
are there any communities that require, 3, 4, 5% of units with those kinds of features?
Yeah, I don't know, but I would think you could find out by calling the
Yeah.
the Disability Commission in New Bedford. They probably have a better
Okay.
feel for that, but they definitely have them there,
Yeah,
being a
Jeff-
bigger
sorry,
metropolitan.
Jeff Dugan at the MOD might be a
Sure.
a good person to contact. He's up in Boston. He might be tied in with somebody in the disability community or in the housing development community, or what's required by the state.
Sure.
It's the Massachusetts Office of Disability.
That was one item that stood out to me through what we've learned in the last, several months or couple of years. There was another gentleman who spoke to us about, developing a dedicated housing development that was accessible and was a community. And one of the stats that resonated with me was that a large majority of people, just specific in Massachusetts, that have a mobility issue or a disability that keeps them from living independently end up in nursing facilities because there's just no other option when really they would prefer being in a vibrant community with their peers. They just have no options to do that.
Right.
So I think independent living is still an option, except the housing options that are provided don't allow for it. So, you know, the independent living, having some allowance for an accessible allotment of, say, 10%, it makes a lot of sense.
And the ability to move from one to the other
Right.
as your situation changes and your health declines. That was your friend, Martin.
Yeah, it was.
You
I'd love to
took-
connect you up with him because he has this tremendous idea. This is really taking it to another level, and that was like, we were talking a dedicated housing just for handicapped, which would include, you know, elderly folks who may be handicapped and so forth. But he also wanted to do a whole thing with, remember, there was job training there, there would be transportation to get you to work if you needed it. He was envisioning this whole thing. And he's already got an organization established and, you know, board of directors and so forth, trying to find land anywhere in Massachusetts to develop something like that. I mean, can you imagine? That would be pretty cool. I mean, it does limit it to just the disabled community, but here you are again with, like you said, having the peers there and really dedicated to the needs of disabled folks.
Yeah.
He had a lot of great stats, though, that may be useful for that, where somebody with a disability may be more apt to work remotely from home, but then that, in effect, also disqualified them from certain state aid programs because they can't generate commercial opportunities in their home where they're getting subsidies for, and there's just
Yeah.
this conflict of laws that block opportunities like that. So again, he was a great
Yeah,
resource.
could I get your email before you go? For some reason, I don't remember getting the questionnaire, to be honest with you. And that's still circulating? Can I get another copy of that?
The survey?
Yes.
I can resend it, yeah.
If you resend it to me, could you also put your contact information? I'll
Yeah.
get you the information. My friend Ed Walsh, who, you know, is the one who started this whole thing with the housing for the disabled.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think you, excuse me, I didn't catch your name.
Rick.
Rick, I think you brought up a good point with the allotment of the requiring the units with the kind of enhanced ADU design elements, so the lower counters and cabinets and stuff. I think that's something we could reasonably incorporate into our zoning bylaw now. What that percentage of units
Right.
ends up being,
Right.
you know, we could, you know, look into that further. But I think the planning board would be really receptive to that. And it's something that obviously won't, well, we wouldn't be able to make it for town meeting this year, but
Sure.
in the future. And I'll make sure I have an ongoing list of things that we're considering as things move along, so I'll make sure that ends up on there.
And I think that if you look at perhaps the email that I sent you, I think I copied all of the members here. So you can
Yes.
certainly find Martin's
Yep.
Okay.
on there. And if not, just get in touch, you know, I'll give you Martin's email.
Yep.
Was that reason, do you think that was when I was in the hospital? Did you recently send that? I don't know if I'm losing my mind, if I can remember this or not.
It was recent, so.
Okay, maybe I lost it in all the emails I had
That's all right.
when I returned, you know, from the hospital, so.
And just getting back to the last thing I was talking about, I will make sure I bring that up with the planning board in their meeting next week. I'll report out on this meeting, and that'll be one of the things that I recommend to them.
Well, the planning board has recently been good about notifying us of developments in town and asking for our opinion as a commission on whether we think it's a good idea or do we have any suggestions for changes that we'd like to see, or whether if we had no comment, just to say no comment. But so they've been very receptive to input from us, which is great. Anybody else have any questions, comments, insults, Martin?
No more.
I got Ray.
No, I think this is a great idea. I'm excited. I know it's the beginning stages of it, but it's wonderful to hear that we're getting incorporated into this. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll also, make sure I send Serped, my notes from the meeting
Good.
today.
Good.
I'll do that this week.
Anything else that you would like to share with us?
I mean, it's not about the housing piece, but we are, can I move on to
Yeah.
the sidewalks?
Sure.
Mhm.
Well, it's not just sidewalks, it's taking a look at the area between Village Way and Hicksbridge Road for streetscape and placemaking improvements. So the streetscape improvements could be everything from walkways, speed limits, changes to the road layouts themselves, looking at the intersection of Adamsville Road and Main Road, and really having a community-led initiative. So we'll have multiple public meetings a part of this, and we'll see where folks lead us with it. I think there's been interest in sidewalks, obviously, in the corridor for some time, over a decade now. And so I would anticipate that being one of the main deliverables of the project. But what we'll do with this project is we'll be developing a long-range plan for the corridor that'll just outline steps that the town can take to make it a corridor that is accessible for all people regardless of their age or ability, to get in between destinations and not necessarily have to get in your car to go, from place to place. So right now we're just in a very preliminary phase. I've sent out a survey to I just wanted to get a sense for what the business owners and residents in the area feel, so I just sent it out to them for right now, and I'm waiting to get some feedback from them.
I think that was an issue last time.
There was an issue last time.
Yes, it was. So that's
2012.
So you're aware of
it
that?
was, yeah, I have a whole folder
Oh
on
my
letters
God.
to the editor.
I wrote a letter to the editor about that, thinking it was a great idea, but I know it got squashed. And people are very upset about that big tree over near the Bay Bank. There's a gigantic tree there. And, they wanted to cut the tree down to put the
Mhm.
sidewalks through, and a big blow up about how we want to save that tree and so forth. So I don't know if they're going to try to go around that. I mean, there's just a lot of issues there, but hopefully the
Yeah.
businesses have changed their minds as far as
Yeah.
not wanting it.
Go ahead.
Well, one of the things that would concern me as a pedestrian is some people don't observe the speed limit when they go down Main Road, and they go pretty fast. One of the things that New Bedford did when they remodeled their area of Route 18 that went all the way down to town, where they made it much more pedestrian friendly,
Yes.
where you can do, I
And
don't know,
attractive.
if you're going to change the path that the road takes, but put up islands or find ways to slow people down and make it easier for people to get from one side to the other
Yeah.
without taking their lives in their hands.
Yeah, lane narrowing, having the curb bulb outs like you're talking about at crosswalks. All those things will be under consideration, I think.
Good.
I think the issue with that one, another contributing factor on the last pass, but you see the impact of it in other parts of town. So the north end of Sanford Road, and then at the point where the initial idea and concept for the sidewalk is sound, but the town does not allow for any ongoing maintenance. It basically just pushes the maintenance and liability onto the property owners. And what happens is the sidewalks fairly quickly become unusable. So the Sanford Road sidewalk and then the Point sidewalk at this point are so disjointed from tree roots and everything else that it becomes a challenge to even use, even though they're there. So
They're often blocked by trash barrels and other things as well.
I think that's something that would
People
have to be.
park on the sidewalk down there.
They do?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because it gets narrow at times.
Yeah,
and,
yeah, it is narrow. It is.
And Anders has spoken to us frequently about the difficulty he's had traversing the sidewalk down there.
My daughter uses a chair for safety outside, and unless she's in a fenced-in area. And we're often taking her actually into the roadway because of obstacles and
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
And that's one of the concerns that we on our commission have is if you are disabled and like be in a wheelchair, and you are forced to go out into the street, it creates, number one, a hazard for people on the road, but it also creates internal upset for the person in the wheelchair, because I can't see what's coming behind me.
Mm-hmm.
I might be able to hear them, and they sound like they're coming very fast. And, I can't go off the road fast enough
Right.
to avoid, a potential incident. I used to practice law in New Jersey, and it was a requirement that, by law, that the town maintain sidewalks.
Mm.
But the
Rather
town
than-
always tried, every town in the area would try to put that responsibility on the homeowner. And I used to tell my clients, it's not your responsibility unless you make it your responsibility. Like if you go out and start shoveling snow, or if you want to try to fix that sidewalk, then it becomes your responsibility. But until then, it's the town. So I'm not sure what the law says here, but somebody's got to be responsible for maintaining.
We as a commission should look into that, because we might be able to force the town, I hate to say that, but to fix the sidewalks, since they are gonna be technically responsible for them, because nobody's really looked into it. Maybe it's still, maybe you're right. That's very interesting of what you did,
Yeah.
with the other town.
Yeah, I think, and it's a really good point to bring that, the maintenance aspect of it into question, and I think that's one thing that we'll want to have some, so it's going to be it's just a plan, so it's just gonna be a set of recommendations, and I think that'll be one thing that we'll want to spend some time on in the plan itself, especially in light of some of the budgetary constraints that we have.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, I've only worked for the town since October. I would have to say that, when you have those kinds of constraints and departments being, having staffing positions cut, and that'll impact the ability to maintain infrastructure like that.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah, and I think
So
that
it's-
just needs to be part of the overall plan, because I'm
Yeah.
sure that's, I don't think anybody in town would argue with the benefit that sidewalks could provide for everybody, whether you have mobility challenges or not. It's always fallen down on who's gonna pay for it, who's gonna maintain it, whose liability is it if it gets a crack and somebody trips and falls.
Mm-hmm.
And if those questions aren't answered, I think you're gonna face some of the same resistance from the corridor.
Yep. I agree with that.
And, our commission will do what we can to help, but, we're just an advisory board, we're not. They frequently quote that Mel Brooks movie where it's like, he says, "It's good to be king."
Yeah.
But, that's not the situation here. We don't
Yeah.
have any kings in West.
We are only a small commission, but the truth of the matter is we have the Americans with Disability Act behind us, which is a really powerful piece of legislation. So, we can say we want certain things done, and then if they're not done, if the law mandates it, it has to be done, so.
Yeah, no, that's true, but unfortunately, the ADA doesn't have any enforcement provisions in the statute. It's left up to individuals to rely on the ADA and bring their own suits.
I like to mention that the ADA requirements are posted by the Department of Justice. Sometimes that gets people's attention a little more than just
Right.
saying ADA. So it is the Department of Justice that presents the ADA guidelines.
Right.
I get a hard time using my Segway, and that's how I present it, that I will have to file a civil rights complaint with the Department of Justice.
Have you done so?
I have not,
Mhm.
because.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but I've come close.
I know that's an avenue, yeah.
So as I said, we will do what we can when and if you ever feel that we should weigh in on these things. We have, as I said in the past, we've tried, we've gone before the planning board, we've sent letters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's why I asked if someone on this commission might be interested in being a representative, because I think having someone from your commission, your views represented on the project will be really critical. The timeline for that would be, as I said in my email, probably not until this fall. The working group would meet. We're going to apply for a couple different grants to fund this project. So pending the results of those grants, the working group would probably meet fall, late summer, something like that.
Okay, just let me know.
Okay.
Martin, I've already volunteered.
What's that?
Hey.
I've already volunteered to serve. and
Thank you.
I beat you to it, Martin. You usually volunteer for everything.
I do. I want to wait and see if anybody would. So are you going to be on the committee? Is that what you're saying? On the,
Yeah.
you thinking of it?
I already said I would.
Oh, good.
But sometimes if it's winter, it's hard for me to get out.
Okay.
'Cause, you know,
I'll work hand in hand with you. If you can't get out on one day, I'll go take your
Okay.
place. How's that?
Great.
Okay.
So you can see that there is an interest.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Would any of you happen to know anyone who lives in the Village Way development?
I do.
'Cause you do?
Yes.
Would they potentially be interested?
Oh, not this person I know, but I could ask.
Okay.
Can you explain that? What are you looking for to have them suggest some ideas from living there and then the sidewalks maybe coming out from that roadway?
I think having someone represented from, so the apartments are income restricted. And so
Yes.
having someone from an income restricted 55-plus community, I think it would be valuable to
Okay.
have someone participate in the working group from that
All right.
complex.
I'll dig around.
So, I mean, I've made the request for all residents can express interest in being on the working group, and I had someone come in and offer this morning. But you know, we want to try to reach out and have as many diverse voices represented as possible.
Good.
Well, this has been very informative. And
Yes.
as I said, we will do anything that we can to help.
Great. I actually have Keith McDonald. I don't know if you know him, but he's on the Bike and Walking Path Committee, and he expressed interest in being on the working group, and he was actually he provided in-kind engineering services
Nice.
to the last initiative, so it'll be really valuable to have him on the work group because he went through the whole process.
Yeah, great.
So, but yeah, as the project moves along, I make sure I keep you all updated.
Great.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much for
Thanks so
coming
much.
in this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
You know, Brian, I'm glad you volunteered for that working group because in all honesty, I was gonna wait to see if anybody else was gonna go on because we have to have somebody on that group. I mean, I think it's that important.
Yeah.
So if you weren't gonna do it, I would eventually do it. But I'm in so many different groups. Yeah, you know, I don't want to spread too thin, but you were saying it's maybe
Sure.
only once a month or something like that, which didn't sound too bad.
Yeah, I mean, I would anticipate that we probably will meet 4 or 5 times.
Okay.
And I would try to meet virtually,
Oh, that's
just
good.
because I think that
Oh, that's
that
great.
makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Which, speaking of, I don't know if you all saw, but the remote meetings are anticipated to be extended.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
That was pretty big news for one of the other commissions that I staff, the Climate Resilience Committee. We had some concerns that wasn't going to get extended, because we have people zoom in from like Florida and other places, so.
Yeah, it's so convenient.
But yeah, anyway, we'll meet virtually for that, I would anticipate, so
Okay.
that'll be helpful.
Yes.
Yeah. Great.
All right,
Thanks again.
yeah, thank you, have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
You too. The next thing on our agenda is Beach Avenue, the geogrid installation and the mobility map placement at Beach Avenue. And I know that Martin's been involved in having discussions with Chris Gonzalez
Yeah.
And Chris has to be involved, particularly with the geogrids. We also have to make sure that Chris Capone is okay with the final resort. He initially said he would be okay with the project. And the mobility map placement at Beach Avenue, I talked to Ross Moran because a good part of that beach is owned by the Land Conservation Trust, and he wanted to be sure that he was a part of those conversations, and so I relayed that to Martin, and Martin.
And I relayed that to Sean, when I talked to Sean Leach, who's on the beach committee, and he said he would be sure to talk to Ross about that.
Okay,
But
good.
if I can step forward, I want to say I'm a bit frustrated because here we are, another year at the last week of March. You know, if we don't get this done this week,
Yeah.
we have to get special permission in April, which means we got to bring somebody down to see if there's any piping plovers down there. We could do it in April, or we have to wait again, and I just don't think we should wait any longer. What I did do, I don't know what else to do. By the frustration, I mean, I've talked to so many people, including Chris and Sean. I haven't talked to Chris Capone. I don't know Chris that well, but Sean said he would take care of that. So this morning I called him, Sean, I left a message, I didn't get anything, and then I called Chris Gonzalez, and it also went to his voicemail. I said, what are these guys doing, hiding out on me? But hopefully, you know, I mean, it's still possible they can get it done one day. You know, he may say, well, we're gonna do it Thursday, so we'll see. I'll keep calling. I sent a text message to Sean too. I said, listen, I've got a meeting today. I'd like to give the guys a report and the gals a report, but he didn't get back to me. But he knows all about it because during the month of March, I kept saying, hey, we gotta get this done by the end of March. We're gonna get this done, right? And Chris would say, it's on my schedule or whatever. I'm ready whenever they are. But now we gotta coordinate everybody, Ross and, you know, Chris Capone and all that, make sure we're all ready and get in there. But I know that Chris has to go down there and level it all off because the Beach Avenue is so rocky right now. Not rocky, ruddy, you know? So he's gonna be down there anyways doing that. So I think that at the same time, we'd get all that done.
Right.
So I'll let you guys know by email if something happens in the next couple of days, okay?
Hopefully it does.
I hope so.
Part of the problem, I think, that Chris Gonzalez has is he's down so many people in his
Correct.
department.
Yeah.
And now if the exclusion to the Proposition 2.5 doesn't go through, they're going to lose potentially more people. And there will be pressure on Mr. Hartnett to use operating funds, which the town doesn't have a real surplus of, to get things done in town. So when that question comes up, I mean, the question about the Diamond School is on for this election, which is coming up in April. But there will be a town meeting and a ballot question about the exclusion to it's going to raise taxes for everybody. But if we don't find the funds, then we might be in a situation with Chris Gonzalez going forward has fewer and fewer people to get the geogrids installed, and as you said, the piping plover season is going to interfere, and then we could be into the fall, because this plover season goes until August.
Yeah.
So,
Might be hard to get that exclusion, and the taxes already went up quite a bit.
yeah, I know.
And it's complicated by the fact that, because I just got a call the other day to ask if they could put a sign on my lawn that, let's see if let me get this right. At the voting on, is it April the 11th, or when our next town voting is, that we have to vote on whether we're going to fund the new Diamond Vocational School with excluded
Right.
or
Right.
operating budget. They don't
Yep.
really have the money in the operating, so they want to exclude that as well. So I don't know where this is going to go with, I mean, this is going to put the taxes through the roof, I think.
The
But
thing about the Diamond School is the town has already said,
yes,
yeah, we should do
yes,
that.
that's right. So
But
we
then
have
when-
to.
Then, of course, when the question came up, it didn't pass, and so now it's on again. And there's been an effort, I think, to give more information about the importance of the tax exclusion for the town, and it would only fund the town budget for the next 3 years, if that.
Right.
So everybody should pay attention to those things. And Martin, I thank you for your involvement in the Beach Avenue stuff.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have more
It's a
to
little
report.
frustrating.
May I also say that Sean let me know that at North Beach, or what we call Baby Beach, that the Moby Mat area got all washed out, you know, with that big storm we had, I think in
Right.
December with those heavy winds and all that kind of stuff. So he was gonna talk to Chris about putting gravel in there, because right now there's just sand underneath that Moby
Yeah.
mat, so it always washes out, and it'll do it again. So something's gonna have to be done with that before the season begins, but he's aware of it, as, you know, the beach committee is, so we'll see what goes on with that.
No, thank you.
Mhm.
Because after they did the work at North Beach, it was beautiful.
I thought so too,
And one time I was over there,
yeah.
the mats were down, there was a
Agreed.
family that was enjoying it. You know, hopefully there will be a wheelchair accessible table.
I think I mentioned that Sean said, yes, they already ordered it, so I think it should be there by the spring.
Well, that would be good.
Yeah.
I took
Because-
swimming lessons there when I was a kid.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
That's
you
pretty
know,
funny, huh?
And it looks like a lovely spot because, you know, the water's calm and,
It is.
you know, you can go over with your family and have everybody get in the water when they want to. The next thing is, actually, this is gonna be you again, Martin.
It is?
The ADA transition team, Martin, Andrews, and I volunteered to be on it.
Yeah, we did.
And as long as I've been on it, we've never met.
Right.
But there was a Zoom meeting that was posted. I don't know if they've had the meeting. I think they
It's
did.
coming up.
And Martin volunteered to participate in
Yeah.
it. And primarily, the Zoom meeting is to educate towns about what they need to do when they're preparing a transition plan, because not all towns have a transition plan yet. And there are things you need to consider when you are formulating a transition plan. But I also thought it might be helpful for those of us who are ultimately going to be involved in refinements to the plan that we already have. Now, so, and when
Yeah.
that comes up, Martin will attend via Zoom and then report back to us about what he's learned, so that when those of us on the transition team do finally get together, we can talk about it. I think I notified Jim Hartnett about I notified
You did, yeah.
Jim and Denise Bouchard, his secretary, his administrative assistant, about the date and time of the meeting, if
Okay.
in the event that he wants to participate, if he has the time. I know he's probably up to his eyeballs in alligators with all the stuff that's going on in town, but, so, Martin, if you learned anything,
Oh, absolutely. I want to find out about that. And I think after I learn something about that, that we should try to set a date with Jim, because we've been talking about this for a while, and
right,
I know he's been busy, and I think we were very fair in saying we'll wait another year or so, you know, but so he could settle into the job and all that kinds of good stuff. But it'd be good to really sit down and get this transition plan done. It's also kind of important because we also need this if we want to apply for any grants from MOD. Am I correct, Brian? I think that, you know, they have and they say you have to have the transition plan and your
Yeah, that came up.
and ADA coordinator all in place and blah, blah, blah. You know, I mean, they want all this stuff ready to go.
yeah, and if you want to apply for a grant from the MOD, you have to think a year out.
Yes,
because,
yes.
you know, they frequently will entertain grant applications and then make their awards, even while, you know, you start to think about it, well, that might be too late, so you have to think
No, you're right.
long-term. you
You're
know,
right.
and probably a year out, as I said. So, yeah, you know, it'd be nice for us to at least sit down and talk about. Now, when I first started on the commission, I don't know who gave it to me. I think Jeff Bull may have given it to me. A copy of the existing ADA transition plan. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, it is huge.
And many of the things on there have already been done, like the rampway getting up into this building, the
Right.
elevator so that you can get into town hall, and that sort of thing. And I mean, it just popped another thing in my head about whether or not, what the town's gonna do with the old high school. Because if it's ultimately decided to sell the high school and then use that money to upgrade, it'll be upgrading this building, upgrading town hall, upgrading the town building for council on aging.
That hasn't been decided yet, has that? Is that what you're saying? That's a suggestion, correct?
Right.
Because they were also talking about making apartments out of it, or
Right.
putting all the town
Yeah. but all-
offices up there.
That's right. All town
Okay.
functions will go there. Of course, when you look at all the costs involved.
I know.
It's
It's like 29 mil or something. It was-
Yeah, it's millions of dollars
Yes.
that we don't have here in town.
But any of those changes are millions of dollars.
Right.
The only way to make money is to sell it, either to
Yeah, but
college or a medical facility or something like that.
But even if it's sold, the cost of upgrading the other buildings
Yes,
exceeds the
yes.
money that the
That's
the
true.
town will get for the sale.
I think, what was it, 11 million they thought?
Yeah, that was what they thought they could.
Could get, possibly.
It was an
Yeah.
appraisal of that property.
Yeah.
The other thing, the next thing is there was a quarterly tea, in quotes, held by the Massachusetts Office on Disability. And they were going to talk about disability-related issues, and Martin very kindly volunteered to attend the tea and drink his tea with his finger out.
I gotta tell you,
All right.
listen, I hope nobody from that tea is listening, but I dropped off after about half an hour. I didn't find it very helpful at all.
Really?
No. It was too broad. Let's talk about disability issues, and they were just talking about what MOD does and what the different commissions do, and it was very basic, as I thought. So, I'm hoping that, I'd rather do something like the transition, and instead of just having, it was kind of like a gathering and everybody can get to know one another, which is good, but
Yeah.
I didn't see any, solid information I could bring back to us to use for anything, but,
Well, thank you for
Sorry.
tuning in.
yeah, I did.
We appreciate it.
Hey, I've been on every agenda so far, right? 4, 5, 6, 7. When are you guys gonna jump in?
Go, Martin, go. There's no stopping you.
Those are so easy, to go online. I don't mind. I'm home anyway, but I like the ones that MOD does. They do every so often. They get the commissions together and they talk about what each commission has accomplished, and then you can say to somebody maybe from New Bedford, oh yeah, you did this park or whatever, a handicap accessible park. Can you help me get something started? No, that's what I was hoping to hear from this other one, but I didn't get that impression.
The next thing on the agenda is I've recently read an article. It was in a conservation magazine, of all things. It was an article about backpack companies. One was called We Carry Kevin. Another was Piggyback Rider, and the other was the Freeloader, where they can put individuals, and these are usually people who have some sort of birth developmental defect, that they only get to be 60, 70 pounds, but they're even as an adult. But for the article is about a young woman who was maybe 24 who wanted to go and visit the national parks, and there was a picture of the cliff dwellings, and of course you have to climb a ladder to get up to see them. Well, her father, God love him, who was in his 50s, put her in a pack, strapped it to his back, and carried her up so that she could see it. So those types of packs are available if someone with a disability wants to get out and about, and they have a strong individual who is in a position to be able to put one of these packs on their back and carry the disabled person.
So he built a backpack for his daughter, and then he went and made a business out of it? Is that the article, do you know?
No, the We Carried Kevin company was developed by a man who is developmentally disabled himself. And he wanted to get out and about, and he said, how can I make this happen? So he designed and built and made a whole company out of making these packs. And I don't know if the dad who was carrying his daughter up was using one of the We Carry Kevin packs or something else. But those packs are out there and they're available. There aren't a lot of people in the world who are going to want to use one of those, but if you find yourself in a position where you do,
Sure.
I mean, I remember when my son was small, or my son was never small, but we wanted to take him out and about, so there was always a pack you could put over your shoulders
Yes.
and carry them back. Well, that's pretty much the same idea, except it's a larger pack for a larger person.
Good.
And as I said, you just need someone with the ability to carry.
You know, it sounds like a lot of weight. It's funny, I was just talking to a firefighter today who told me they carry 70 pounds on the back. Now granted, that's during an emergency. My point is 50 or 60 pounds would be doable with somebody who, you know, is in good shape.
Yeah, you know, and sitting here, it's like, it's only 70 pounds. Well, if you try carrying 70 pounds,
No.
it's not an easy thing to do.
I can't do that anymore.
No,
Yeah.
no, so, but that option is available if anybody wants to try to take advantage of it. The other thing that came up in that magazine was, if you want to go visit a national park and say there's a lot of sand around, whether it's the sand dunes or the beach, many of the national parks have wheelchair rentals, and some of the wheelchairs have inflatable tires that you can use on sand. And I found one down in Florida where my wife and I used to go in the winters, and one of the parks that we used to go to, in a shed, they had one of the wheelchairs with the large balloon tires.
Town
And you get pushed, you don't push it yourself.
No,
Okay.
my very strong daughter was the one who pushed me around, and
Nice.
thought it was fun pushing her
Yeah,
dad
yeah,
around.
sure.
Of course, in and out of the water, when, like, that was not really what Dad wanted to do. But
So does the town still have that one at the?
Yes, yeah.
in the
I thought we might
basement?
have two. Do we have two of them? Did I say two? Did I
I
say
don't
two?
know.
Anyways, it's down in the cellar of the town hall. The problem is, you know, getting it to the beach. Who's gonna set it up? Who's gonna pick it up?
It may be worthwhile to try to, as the commission, try to develop a protocol for that.
I agree, Rick.
You know,
It's such a waste.
So that somebody that wants to use it, if we define who they can call, how much advance notice they need, is it the lifeguard's responsibility, is it
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody knows.
No, I
So
don't think that was
if
ever
we can
set. I
figure
don't
it
think it was
out-
ever set up. I thought it was bought just as a courtesy,
Right.
and then nobody set it up. And now we get the same problem with, limited staff. Who's gonna take them down,
Right.
But I agree with you.
But if there was an online reservation system or,
Mm.
something, and then the lifeguards, when they go down for the day, they leave it, and
Oh,
maybe
that's a good idea.
it gets locked up down at the bottom of Cherry and Webb Lane,
Yes.
and then right next to the handicap parking, and then when they can load in, and if they're with family, they can get them up and over. Right,
It's
but
a long way.
it is a long way.
Well, it's very difficult to get to Cherry and Webb.
Yeah.
If you're in a wheelchair, even because not only is it a long way, but there's that big
The hill.
The big hill, that's a
Yeah.
pain.
And sand.
Yeah.
And, what the town might say, and I agree, we should find out from the town about it, but the town might say, yeah, the wheelchair is here if you want to come get it,
Right.
and then bring it back at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
And even if that was the case, I think that at least it's, people are aware that it's available.
Yeah.
Where right now, I think it's buried in the basement. Nobody, outside of the conversations we've had, maybe
Right.
doesn't even know it's there.
Right.
Yeah, because we've talked about it over the years, about the fact that the town has the wheelchair, but it would be a good idea for us to
Can
find
we
out.
put it on the website? It's not on the website, that we have it available to
we
contact,
could.
contact the commission, and then we can take it from there if somebody contacted us and said,
Yeah,
I
and I
want to
think-
use it in a week or something, and find out how we can get it down there.
Yeah, I think even, before then, if internally we can do some work to figure out who
Yeah,
owns it in town,
Yeah,
who's-
good
who
point.
can- Who manages it, who would we check it out from?
let me ask Sean, because he's the one who brought it up to me that was still around, with the beach committee, and see if how he feels about us leaving it down at the beach, for example, bolted, I'm gonna say, with a lock on it or something, and then if somebody wanted it, somebody might steal it, could it not stay there for the whole season?
Yeah, I think that it's unlikely that the town will agree to do that, and as I said, they might prefer to have the user come pick it up,
Yeah.
cart it to the beach.
Yeah, there's no shed down there, right, or anything near Cherry,
No.
well, not Cherry, but any place to put
Even,
it?
even at North Beach.
No, there's nothing, no,
Which would be a
no
great
storage.
place.
Yeah,
And somebody may want to use it at the Nubble or at North Beach. or
good
something,
point, good point,
so-
yeah, okay,
So,
okay.
you know,
It's just that if somebody wanted to use it, like you said, right now we have to leave it up to them to get it.
Right.
So they've got to have a pickup truck or,
But if we can find out from the town who should be called and how they would do that, then we can write
Okay.
that up, we can put it on our website. And,
Okay.
and Jim Hartnett might even be a person to contact to see if he has any information that might be helpful.
okay,
And if you have a wheelchair van, maybe you go over and fit yourself, and the beach wheelchair in it, and then you just have to figure out how to transfer from your chair into that chair. And if you have family members that can help you, and then you can take it off to the beach and then bring it back at the end of the day. And that it's not something that a lot of people are going to want to do because we don't have a lot of
No.
beaches here that they can use it at, but people should be aware.
It doesn't matter if there's one person that needs it,
Right.
or one person wants to go on the beach at the Nubble.
I agree.
Right, don't you know what I mean? Don't you agree? I mean, it shouldn't be by the numbers, because yes, you're absolutely right.
Yep.
That's probably why it hasn't been used or asked for in so long, because number one, nobody knows the wheelchair is theirs. Number two, it's not that many people need it, but it's nice to have it handy. I think it was a great idea, whoever came up with that in the beginning. That was before my time.
Yeah, I've been on the commission for a while. I don't really recall when I first started hearing about it, but it was years ago that I first learned that we have the wheelchairs available. But it's high time that our commission
I agree.
tries to do something
I
about it.
agree. Let me talk to Sean. Hopefully Sean will call me about the geogrids, and I'll mention that to him as well.
Okay.
We had talked about this about Cherry Webb, but we both agreed, like everybody said, it was just too much to have it pushed there. But he let me know that it was still available, and I remember seeing it just thrown off to the side down in the town hall,
Under the
like in a
stairs.
storage room, under the stairs or something with a bunch of. It's a shame, because it should be used.
Does anybody have any other thoughts or concerns that they would like to share at this point? We've talked about covered quite a bit of ground so far today.
Yeah, we did good.
So our next meeting is April 24 of 2023. It will be here in the annex. I think that we'll be here in the annex for the next 2 or 3 months, and then we'll go back to meeting.
What do they do? They contact you, or do you contact them to find out what room?
I have to go on to the interweb and find out what
Oh.
the schedule is for the Board of Health, because the Board of Health meets here. And sometimes their schedule conflicts with ours, and that's when so nobody contacts me, and then I have to tell everybody where we're gonna meet.
Okay.
And so far, we've been lucky that there hasn't been a conflict,
No.
been able to work it out. So, April 24,
Okay. Does anybody have any, we still have quite a bit of money left, Brian, and are there any other things that we're thinking about donating to, or?
yeah, we do have some money left. Of course, it's not the summertime where we get influx of money from the parking fines, because people will frequently go to the beach and just park in the handicap spot because it's available. But we still have several $1,000s, and it's one of the topics that we have frequently talked about. And the last thing that we did was to donate money to the school to
Oh, yeah,
buy
for those, yeah.
adaptive
That was nice.
devices for.
Did that ever, do we know that it ever get delivered, and?
I don't know. Kim was
okay.
gonna speak to Nicole in
Okay.
the town accountant,
I'd
so,
like to hear the story on that they got it and they're using it, and it's,
yeah.
worthwhile.
Yeah.
Good.
Because I know, she first asked for one, and then when I suggested maybe 2, she was like, great, we can use them.
Good.
And apparently it helps children participate.
The other thing I'd like to just find out if they're using it, because I'd like to go down and take a picture, and we can put it on the website. I mean, people should know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we have,
Or in shorelines or something. It'd be nice to put that in there and say that, we donated the money for that.
we have talked about that in the past, but, what do we do to advertise what we are doing as a commission? Do we put a brief article in Shorelines, or do we put something on our website? And we should do that. We should,
Yes.
and
Well, I kept putting it off because my hope was that geogrids would get done and we could include it in that
Right.
story.
Wouldn't that be nice?
But maybe we should just do the story. I think, I know Ted Hayes, the editor of the Shorelines very well. I'm sure he would, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but I think he'd be very receptive to doing a story about what we do, and not only be a small thing. I think he'd do a large article, because it's a lot we've done with pictures and so forth. I think that'd be great.
yeah, in years gone by, Stanley Cornwall used to talk about having pictures taken of all the members of the commission.
Yes.
And we all were like, yeah, great, man.
Yeah.
And never
Where
get
it
done.
went.
Yeah.
And that never happened.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's
That's
so,
okay.
so important to have pictures of us.
Oh,
'cause,
us, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody
What
really wants to look at my
we're doing.
smiling face.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
So,
I forgot
The
about.
second time. You're
So-
good at getting him out of his shell there.
Well, the picture's not so much about us, here's my picture, I'm in the paper. It's more to show that, for those people who don't even know that we exist.
Yeah.
There's some people I'm sure who don't. And just to say, this is the commission that works on this once a month, and these are the things we've done, and,
They'll say, Martin does that too?
no,
Yes.
yes, I do want,
He
Holly,
cleans up the
I'd like to,
town,
I'd like to have a
helps us
second
get
on that,
around.
please, Rick.
What's next, Martin?
Don't get me started. No, I want to get those geogrids done. It really is bothering
Yeah.
the heck out of me. I mean, Brian and I talked about that, so we spent the money on it, and it's just sitting there, and,
well, we spent the money on it, we went before the.
oh my
board
gosh,
and
we did a lot of work on it,
Got the.
And we're ready to go, and now our hands are tied because we're waiting for everybody else to get ready.
Hurry up and wait.
Like you said, the wheels turn slow, and,
So if it doesn't happen this week, then you need to get an independent auditor to see.
yeah, Sean says it's not that big of a deal.
Okay,
All right, so I
that's what I
think,
was gonna ask.
I think that's
is
why he might, I don't know if he's, like you said, I know he's been real busy, and
Yeah.
Chris has too. When I talked to Chris a couple of days ago, had some big project on one of the streets in town, He's only got 4 guys, 5 guys, I think 4 guys and 1 part-time, like 5 guys is all he has for the whole town, it's crazy. But anyway, so I don't know if Sean is thinking, well, we'll do it in April and just get the permits for it, whatever, but I'll talk to him.
Very good. Well, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.